Rob Zombie's Halloween. Here we are. We're towards the end of my Rob Zombie series of reviews, and I wanted to cover these movies last. And the simple reason is this is not a Rob Zombie movie. And what I mean by that is Rob Zombie movies are, his own creations. This is the only time that he made a remake of another movie. And I do think this movie is very successful at being his own vision and not John Carpenter's original Halloween. Now, if you guys don't know this, John Carpenter's Halloween, the original movie from 1979, is my favorite horror movie. It is the movie that got me into horror movies. It is an incredible film in its own right. And yeah, I know some people might look at the original Halloween and go, well, it's not as great as other slasher movies. There's been better movies since. But you gotta appreciate where slashers came from. The score to that movie is still fantastic. And it's an infinitely rewatchable movie. So, I'm always gonna be kind of more frustrated with the remake of a movie I really like. Just on principle of it being something you really like. But honestly, I do think this movie is a good, to pretty decent movie in its own right, and that's because this movie is not the same movie as as John Carpenter's movie. It is not as good as John Carpenter's movie, but let's take that away from it because let's not compare it to that because it was never going to be as good. And that's okay. This movie is very different. This movie focuses a lot more on Michael's childhood than the original ever did. And it's a more realistic interpretation of a real person going crazy and becoming a Michael Myers type figure while being a slasher movie. And that's really unique and different. And I like that direction for this movie. It's not perfect. Not all of it works. It's still got Sherry Moon Munster in the cast, and she's not a good actress and shouldn't really be in it. But she's not in this movie as much as other Rob Zombie movies, which helps a lot. This movie is just, but what I really just appreciate is how well he did this. It's just such an original, different thing, and you could tell Rob Zombie kind of in a screwed up kind of life and situation at home. There was a podcast where he talked about how he literally watched someone get beaten, and it didn't really scar him that much. But you could tell that maybe something like that influenced something like this, where he understood, hey, some people can just be crazy and sadistic, and kind of was able to adapt that into a movie and to portray that really well of how someone can be like this. And that's really interesting. I really like this idea. My biggest issues with this movie is just when I start comparing it to Halloween. I don't like the look of Michael in this movie. But, and that's even if you don't compare it to the original Halloween, the look of Michael isn't very good. But honestly, I don't really want to compare it to the original Halloween because I just think it's unfair. I know it's a remake. I get it. But this movie isn't trying to be the original. It isn't trying to be better than the original. It's just trying to be a different take on a franchise by a filmmaker who, while isn't the best filmmaker, he does a pretty good job at giving his own fresh, unique take to the Halloween uh, idea of Michael, the slasher, all this. And it works for what kind of movie it is. It's not perfect. It's not great. It's not going to be everybody's thing. And that's okay. But I think this movie is successful at what he was attempting to do with it. And I really appreciate it for that. In the current age of remakes where we have stuff like the Lion King remake and a lot of these Disney remakes that just don't add anything, they're just the same movie beat for beat, shot for shot. It's just refreshing to sit there and watch a movie based on a franchise, a multi-million-dollar franchise, and just be something different, be something unique and fresh. I know it's kind of sad when we have to talk about things like this because this shouldn't be too much to ask for, but I still think it's worth appreciating when it's done right. And I like this movie a lot for that.